7 American towns that emptied overnight. And in most of them, the people who lived there had absolutely no idea what was happening until it was already too late. Now you've seen ghost town videos before. Abandoned buildings, cracked roads, a little spooky music. But what those videos skip is the actual human details. That's what we're doing today. 7 towns, 7 stories. And some of them are going to genuinely mess with you. Let's get into it. We're starting in Picher, Oklahoma. And the image I want you to hold in your head is this. A kid on a bicycle riding up and down a massive gray hill in the summer heat, completely carefree. That hill isn't a hill. It's a mountain of mine waste, lead, and zinc tailings called chat, and it's slowly poisoning him. Picher was a mining boom town, one of the biggest lead and zinc producers in American history. And for decades, the waste from those mines just piled up everywhere. Families had picnics on the chat piles. Parents actually scooped the gritty dust into their kids' sandboxes. The local creeks ran orange and red from the metals leaching into the water. And kids who swam in them thought they were getting sunburn. It wasn't sunburn. It was chemical burns. The town's blood lead levels in children were catastrophic. The damage was quiet and slow. And by the time anyone really understood what was happening, it had already been happening for generations. But here's the part that makes it worse. A 2006 study found that 86% of Picher's buildings, including the school, were sitting directly over old mine shafts that could collapse without warning. The ground itself was a trap. The government bought out most residents, and the town was officially dissolved. But one man refused to leave. A pharmacist named Gary Linderman, who called himself Lights Out Linderman, kept his pharmacy open for years after everyone else was gone. He had a state record black bear hide on the wall, and he just stayed. One guy, one building, one empty town around him. Eventually he left too, but for a long time he was the last heartbeat in a dead place. That's important. But if you think Picher was a strange way for a town to die, wait until you hear how the next one was born. Times Beach, Missouri didn't start as a town. It started as a newspaper promotion. In 1925, the St. Louis Times was struggling for subscribers. So they came up with a deal. Pay $67.50, get a 6-month subscription, and they'd throw in a riverfront lot. People bought in. A community grew. And for a while, it was actually a pretty decent little place to live. The death of Times Beach came from a waste hauler named Russell Bliss, who had a contract to spray the town's dirt roads with oil to keep the dust down. What nobody knew, including possibly Bliss himself at first, was that the oil was laced with dioxin, waste from a plant that had manufactured Agent Orange. The dioxin levels in that spray were roughly 2,000 times higher than in Agent Orange itself, and the kids of Times Beach loved it. The sprayer left behind a purple-tinted, oily sheen on the roads, and children would run through it, slide around in it, play in it. Nobody thought twice until animals started dying. Horses, birds, cats, dropping dead in ways that didn't make sense. It took years before anyone connected it to the road spray, and by then, the contamination was everywhere. The federal government eventually bought out every single resident, evacuated the entire town, and then literally incinerated it. The buildings, the soil, all of it burned. Today that land is a Route 66 state park. You can walk through it and have no idea a town ever existed there. But if Times Beach is the town that was slowly poisoned, our next one is the most honest overnight story on this list. Kennecott, Alaska sits deep in the Wrangell Mountains, and getting there today requires a dirt road that most rental car companies will void your insurance over. When the copper ran out in 1938, the company made a decision: shut it down. The last train left in November of that year, carrying workers and their families out of the mountains. And because the trains could only carry so much, a lot of people just left things behind. Furniture, tools, personal items, still sitting in the buildings today. Here's a detail almost nobody includes. The company's name is actually a misspelling. A clerical error swapped the letters. So the town is spelled Kennecott, while the glacier it was named after is spelled Kennecott. That mistake got locked in and nobody ever fixed it. And because it was a company town with strict rules, including a ban on alcohol, a separate town called McCarthy grew up nearby, specifically to serve the vices the company wouldn't allow. Saloons, brothels, all of it. The trains even had a special whistle code to warn the saloons when a U.S. Marshal was on board, so everyone could clear out in time. In the late 1960s, the landowner ordered the whole town demolished to avoid liability. But only a few buildings came down before the job was just abandoned. So Kennecott still stands remarkably intact, a full ghost town frozen in 1938 because someone gave up on tearing it down. That's a town that emptied because the resource ran out. But the next one emptied because of a math problem that nobody solved in time. Centralia, Pennsylvania. You've probably heard of it. The underground mine fire that's been burning since 1962. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. In 1962, putting that fire out would have cost somewhere between $10,000 and $50,000. That's it. Instead, officials delayed, argued, passed responsibility around, and by 1984, the estimated cost to stop it had ballooned to $660 million. So Congress did the math and decided it was cheaper to just relocate everybody. While the fire burned underground for those decades, life in Centralia got genuinely strange. Residents grew tomatoes in the middle of winter because the ground stayed warm. They didn't have to shovel snow because it melted before it could stick. The roads cracked open and steam vented up through the asphalt. And the ventilation pipes the government installed to monitor the fire actually made things worse. They fed it more oxygen. The Postal Service quietly deleted Centralia's ZB code in 2002. A handful of residents refused to leave and fought the government for years. Today, a few people still live there legally. The fire is still burning, and nobody alive will see it go out. That's a town killed by fire underground. The next one was killed by water, deliberately. St. Thomas, Nevada, has actually died twice. The first time was in 1871, when the Mormon settlers who'd built the town discovered, through a surveying error, that they weren't in Utah or Arizona like they thought. They were in Nevada. Nevada hit them with years of back taxes. They refused to pay, and rather than hand the town over, they burned it down and left. The town was rebuilt. Life went on, and then Hoover Dam was constructed, and Lake Mead began to rise. And the government told everyone in St. Thomas they needed to go. The last resident, a man named Hugh Lord, waited until the water literally reached his front door in 1938. Some accounts say he set his house on fire before he left. Either way, he paddled away in a boat. And St. Thomas went 60 feet underwater. But here's the thing about St. Thomas. Drought keeps bringing it back. The town re-emerged in 1945, again in 1963, and again in 2012 as Lake Mead's water levels dropped. It's been above water ever since. You can walk through the foundations today. The same town drowned and resurrected over and over. One more detail I love. The community hall that was the heart of St. Thomas before the flood was funded entirely by ice cream socials, organized by the local Women's Relief Society. If you're enjoying this, drop a comment with which of these towns surprises you the most. It genuinely helps the video reach more people, and I read through them. Now, the next town is one almost no one has covered, and it involves a disaster most Americans have never heard. Cahawba, Alabama was the first permanent state capital of Alabama from 1820 to 1825. Then the rivers flooded repeatedly. The capital moved and the town slowly emptied. What happened next is almost unbelievable. A freedman purchased most of the abandoned town for $500. He then systematically demolished the buildings, loaded the materials onto steamboats, and shipped them to Selma and Mobile to be reused. Cahawba wasn't just abandoned. It was literally dismantled and carried away, piece by piece, on the river. But the darkest thread in Cahawba's story isn't the town itself. During the Civil War, it housed a Confederate prison called Castle Morgan. When the war ended, many of the prisoners released from Castle Morgan boarded a steamboat called the Sultana to head home. On April 27, 1865, the Sultana's boilers exploded on the Mississippi River. Somewhere between 1,500 and 1,800 people died. That's a higher death toll than the Titanic, and almost nobody knows it happened. The Sultana disaster gets maybe one paragraph in most history books. Cahawba is now an archaeological site. The town is gone, but that river is still there. And if you know what you're looking at, the ground tells you everything. That brings us to the last town, and this one has a twist that genuinely surprised me. Gilman, Colorado sits on a cliff above the Eagle River Valley, with a view of some of the most expensive ski country in America. Vail is right there, and you cannot go in. The EPA shut Gilman down in 1984 due to heavy metal contamination from the zinc and lead mines, and it's been sealed off ever since. Trespassers are actively prosecuted. You can only look at it from highway pullouts on the road below. Because of that, Gilman is almost perfectly preserved. The mine elevators are still locked at the top level, right where they were left. Cars and trucks are still sitting in garages. The houses, and this is the part that breaks the usual ghost town image, look surprisingly modern and suburban. Not frontier style at all. Just ordinary mid-century American homes sitting empty on a cliff, completely frozen in 1984. And here's the kicker. Someone has to pay for the ongoing water cleanup at Gilman, because the contamination is still leaching into the watershed. That cleanup costs around $1 million a year. The entity legally responsible for paying it? CBS, the television network, through a chain of corporate mergers and acquisitions that traces back to the original mine owner. CBS is writing a check every year for a ghost town that no one is allowed to enter, with no end date in sight. So here's where we landed. 7 towns. A pharmacist who refused to leave a poisoned city. Kids playing in Agent Orange runoff, thinking it was just a fun puddle. A clerical error that named a town wrong for over 100 years. A fire that's been burning underground for 60 years because nobody wanted to spend $50,000. A town that drowned twice. A capital city sold for parts and shipped down a river. And a ghost town that CBS is quietly paying to maintain while skiers ride lifts a few miles away. These places didn't empty because of some mysterious force. They emptied because of decisions, small ones and big ones, that nobody thought would matter until suddenly they mattered enormously. That's the part that sticks with me, not the abandonment itself, but the moment just before it when everything still looked fine. If you want more like this, there's a video right here. And if you're new here, subscribing actually makes a real difference. It's how these videos find the people who want to watch them. I'll see you in the next one.